She's such a lesbian podcast. Hey y'all, welcome back to She's Such a Lesbian podcast. I'm your host Dyse, and this is the space where we talk about love, life, relationships, and all the real messy stuff that comes with being in them. Now, today's episode is called How to Work It Out Instead of Divorcing It Out. Because listen, if we're being honest, sometimes in relationships, especially in lesbian relationships, the moment things get hard, people start packing emotional bags real quick. You know what I'm talking about? Y'all already know studs, films, whatever, no labels. Y'all know what I'm talking about, man. One big argument, and suddenly it's maybe we're not meant to be, or I'm done, or I can't do this anymore. And sometimes leaving is the right choice. But then again, sometimes we're walking away from something that can actually could have been healed if we just knew how to work things through. So today we're talking about why couples quit too soon, how to fight without destroying your relationship, how to communicate when emotions are high, and when it's worth saving versus when it's time to go. So grab your coffee, grab your wine, or your emotional support hoodie, and let's get right into it. You feel me? We get right into segment one. Why people quit relationships too fast. All right, let's start with the truth. A lot of people don't actually leave relationships because they stop loving each other. They leave because they don't know how to fight healthy. And fighting is normal. Let me say that again. Conflict is normal. Two women with opinions, emotions, trauma, communication styles, and strong personalities, of course, there's going to be disagreements. But what happens is this: instead of seeing conflict as a problem to solve together, people see it as proof the relationship is broken. And that's where the quote unquote divorce it out mindset starts. One argument becomes this relationship is toxic. One misunderstanding becomes we're too incompatible. And sometimes what's actually happening is nobody was ever taught how to repair after conflict. Even if you grew up with a one parent home with mom, or one parent home with dad, or a two parent home. I mean, we are not taught how to repair after conflict, because even if it wasn't a relationship, an abusive relationship that we was brought up from, maybe we heard our parents arguing, but we never heard them repair after the conflict. Because let's be honest, most of us grow up watching unhealthy relationships. We saw people yelling, shutting down, avoiding issues, or leaving. So when we become adults in relationships, we repeat what it saw, right? And segment two, the scorecard problem. One of the biggest killers of relationships is something I call the scorecard. You know what that is? When both people start keeping receipts. I did this for you. You never did that. Last time I apologized. You always do this. Now, instead of solving the problem, you're competing to prove who's right. But relationships are not courtrooms, y'all. You don't win by proving your partner wrong. You win by protecting the relationship. Because the goal shouldn't be, how do I win this argument? The goal should be, how do we fix this together, right? Let's go to segment three. The 4 questions that saves relationships. When conflict happens, instead of jumping to I'm done, ask these 4 questions. Question number 1. What is the real issue? Because half of the time, the argument isn't even about what it started as. You're arguing about dishes, but the real issue is feeling unappreciated or feeling unheard. Question number 2. Am I reacting or responding? Reacting is emotional. Responding is intentional. And sometimes we just need to pause before we speak. I always say, even as growing up, my mom used to tell me, think before you act or think before you speak. I never knew what that was until I got into my numerous relationships back in my 20s. But we ain't going to talk about my body count. We're just going to talk about my experience thus far, okay? Enter into my seasonal transition in life. It's all about how you think before you speak. Because if you think before you speak, you won't end up saying something that you can't take back. That's where the receipts come in. Oh, you called me a B. Or you called me out my name. Stuff like that. Or what you said to me really hurt. If you really love that person, you will pause before you speak. And that's how you respond and make it intentional. Let's go to question number 3. Is my partner my enemy or my teammate? Because if you start seeing your partner as the opponent, the relationship becomes a battlefield. There's, some men think that since they are the head of the household, they walk with the woman behind them. But no matter if it's a heterosexual or a lesbian relationship or a gay relationship, when you are the head of the household or whoever it is, you walk with your partner beside each other because nobody is above anybody in a relationship. You know the reason why I say that? It's because nobody is competing when you're getting to know each other. You ask them questions, let them answer, and then you let them ask you questions and give them time for you to answer, right? So seeing your partner is not the way to go as the opponent because you don't want your relationship to become a battlefield. Now you feel like you're stuck and you can't move on. Question number 4. Do I want to be right or do I want us to be okay? Honestly, y'all, those 2 things are not always the same. Not being right is okay. Because who's counting? Well, when I first met my wife, I did say, I'm going to make you my wife. And she said, oh, really? I said, yeah. I said, because when we get married, I'm going to tell you I told you so. All right, that's kind of like in the thing, in the reference of being right. But I'm also reassuring her of what I saw in the beginning of our relationship because I approached her as a friend first, and then we became a couple, and then we became married. So, going further in the relationship, I advise y'all, especially studs, to approach your lady as a friend. Don't make her feel like she's a piece of meat. You feel me? That wham bam, thank you, ma'am, is like 2003-ish. All right? And that brings us to segment number 4. The power of repair. Here's something nobody talks about. Nobody talks enough about, rather. Healthy couples aren't couples that never fight, but healthy couples are couples that know how to repair. Repair means apologizing sincerely, acknowledging hurt, taking responsibility, Reconnecting emotionally and a real apology doesn't sound like, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. That's not an apology. A real apology sounds like, babe, I understand why that hurt you. I didn't mean to cause that pain. And let's figure out how to do better. Sometimes you can add on, and I'll work on myself on how to approach you and work on myself on how to sensitively approach you. I didn't mean to cause that pain. You recognizing that, okay, I did hurt you, but I didn't mean it. Let's figure it out by how to do better, how to repair or rebuild safety. And safety is the foundation of love. Because after an argument, you have to rebuild. I mean, I'm sorry, but sometimes women comes with the three B's. I always call it the three B's. Battered, bruised, and broken. No matter if you a man, you still going to get a woman with the three B's. No matter if you gay, okay, you still going to get a man with the three B's. Battered, bruised, and broken. And always, always, after an disagreement, quote unquote, or argument, you always want to repair your relationship because it rebuilds safety. And again, safety is the foundation of love. Now, on to segment 5. When working it out actually makes you stronger, that's the title of segment 5. When working it out actually makes you stronger. Something powerful happens when couples learn to work through conflict. Trust grows because every time you solve something together, you prove the relationship can survive hard moments. And that creates emotional safety. It says, even when we disagree, we're still choosing each other. And that alone, that right there, that's powerful because love isn't just about chemistry. Love is about commitment. It's about choosing each other, even though it's uncomfortable. So, choosing each other when it gets uncomfortable, that's a commitment. And I mean, I'm sorry, y'all, but that's hell of a growth. You know, when you both say that, that's one hell of a growth between both of y'all. And then you can start building your love, knowing that you both have committed to each other. All right? All right. Segment 6. When it's time to leave. Now, let's also be real, y'all. Working it out does not mean tolerating everything. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what Dyse is saying. Some situations absolutely require leaving. If there is abuse, okay, manipulation, repeated betrayal, disrespect, and no willingness to grow, then yeah, sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away. And I'm pretty sure half of y'all, or more than half of y'all, maybe all of y'all, understands what that means. Working it out requires two willing people, okay? Let me say that again. Working it out requires two willing people. You can't fix a relationship by yourself. You know that saying, it takes two to tango? I mean, you know, it does. It does. So, I mean, by that saying right there, if you don't remember nothing else that I say or have said on this podcast, remember this. You can't fix a relationship by yourself. All right? Now we add our Q&A segment, our questions and answers. Question 1. which is basically when people send me questions and stuff like that, I make sure I add it on the podcast. That way, when they're listening, I can approach everybody, or I can answer this question for everybody who has been wanting to ask me this. So, question one: what is the real issue? Okay, so the real issue, I mean, because half of the time, I mean, me and my wife has been together for about 5 years, married for going on 3 in May 17th. Okay. Half of the time, the argument isn't even about what it has started with us. Like, you know, when we have like misunderstandings and stuff like that, it's we always go to our corners. Think of a boxing ring. All right, when the referee bring y'all two together and he give you the rules, he say, "You ready? You ready? Bum gloves. Let's go back to your corners." You go back to your corners. All right. First round, ding ding ding. You issue the blow, they issue the blow. All right, round one out the way. Go back to your corners. Okay, so before that bell rings and you in your corners, think about what you're going to say and what you're going to do. Because, man, hard hits hurts, man, especially if it's below the belt. And that's how we've learned to handle our miscommunications, not necessarily arguments. All right. Um, so this was a really honest question that someone sent to me. I think it was today. Why did marriage, or what did marriage teach you about yourself? And the answer is a lot. Marriage holds a mirror up to you. Okay, think about that. And I'm speaking metaphor because, I'm an artist, I'm a singer, I'm a rapper. Think about that for a second. Marriage holds a mirror up to you. You start recognizing your patterns, your triggers, your pride, your communication habits. Sometimes the conflict isn't about the other person. Sometimes it's about realizing there are things in you that still needs healing. Remember when I talked about the 3 B's? Battered, broken, and bruised, like that. She came to me like that. She had to teach me how to love her, and I had to teach her how to love me. We're both Tauruses. I mean, 2 days apart, go figure. But both of us know when it's time to submit. All right. So learning something, sometimes learning something about yourself helps the other person, the relationship or the marriage. Sometimes it's about realizing that there are things in you that still needs healing, because marriage can be a growth space if you're willing to learn from it. All right. Going to the next question. This question is one that every couple needs to think about. How do you reconnect after an argument? Wow, wow, wow. I mean, conflict isn't inevitable, you know, but repair is intentional. I just said that. What I've learned over the years is that reconnection requires for you to be humble. Someone has to be willing to say, I didn't handle that the best way. And sometimes both people have to take accountability. It's not always left is right more than right is right. You know, S- Sometimes you both have to take accountability, man. When couples learn how to repair after conflict, the relationship actually becomes stronger, because every repair builds what? Trust. All right? All right. This is the last question here. One of the most serious questions I got was this: what advice would you give couples thinking about divorce? All right, now, y'all. Okay, so before I answer this, look, don't say Dice told me, okay? I mean, you can say I heard this from She's Such a Lesbian podcast. You can even refer them to the link, She's Such a Lesbian podcast.com, and down to episode, how to work it out instead of divorcing it out. All right. Don't say you got it from Dice, okay? This is just my perspective of this is just my answer, flat out. All right. Okay. The first thing I will say is not every rough season means the relationship is over. Okay. Sometimes people are just tired or hurt or simply disconnected. Okay. And those things can be worked on if both people are willing to work on it. Not that, I mean, that doesn't mean staying in something unhealthy, but it does mean asking that honest question. Have we actually tried to fix this? Have we actually tried communicating this openly? And have we tried counseling or deeper conversations? Because sometimes couples don't need separation, they need, all right? I mean, like I said, don't quote Dice on this, just refer them to the link, all right? Okay, now, closing final, let's be honest words. You get it? Let's be honest. Let's be. All right, okay, anyway. All right, y'all. Before we go, I always like to leave you with a final thought because relationships, especially marriages, aren't always easy. Love is beautiful, but commitment requires work, patience, and sometimes uncomfortable conversations. And if there's one thing these last few years of marriage have taught me, it's that a lot of relationships don't end because the love disappeared. They end because the communication did. Sometimes people aren't falling out of love, they're falling out of understanding. So before you throw the whole relationship away, ask yourself if there's still room to listen, to grow, and to repair. Now, let's be honest with you for a second. Working it out doesn't mean ignoring problems. It definitely doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. But if two people are willing to be honest, humble, and intentional, a lot more can be healed than people realize. Relationships don't survive because they're perfect. They survive because the people in them decide the relationship is worth protecting. So if you're in love, protect it. If you're hurting, talk about it. And if you're committed, do the work that commitment requires. All right, y'all. Thank you for spending this time with me. Let's be honest. All right. Until next time, y'all. Peace.